Hello, Tim.
Hello, how are you?
Greetings from Florida.
So how are things in Florida?
Well, they were quiet
Now we're going.
up until an hour ago when our brother called. We were going to see him tomorrow, but
Mhm.
we're not going to see him now. He just came down positive. So,
Oh, good Lord.
yeah, that's what we just said. So, and
Yeah,
we almost came down a day early and visited and slept over that night, but we did not. So
well,
we came directly to our place. I figured it was, just too risky to spend
yeah,
overnight, and it just wasn't worth it.
right.
Plus, his wife has immunity problems. So
Like,
yeah, they got a handful right now. So
they certainly sound like it.
how are you doing?
Well, doing okay, but then I got news this week. Our synagogue in Ohio, the temple administrator there, who we know, she was just diagnosed positive for COVID. And three of the congregants in that synagogue that we know, one of them, one of the rabbi's best friends, he had to bury this past week. 3 funerals in 1 week from COVID at the synagogue.
Oh, wow.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Ohio's getting hit really, really hard.
Oh my goodness.
So
How large is the congregation up there?
it's about 625 family units.
Oh, that's a big congregation, but still,
Right,
wow.
right. And the
Oh,
rabbi who was the rabbi we know, he's retiring in June.
just lost you, Tim. I don't know if you can hear him.
I-
I got you back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
The Wi-Fi might be a little slow here. I don't know.
yeah, it happens, it's Florida. Come on. Florida's Florida.
So loyal to you that here we have a beach in front of us.
Well,
And
not-
we said, no, we're going to be there for Tim, then we'll go.
Well, is it warm down there today?
Well, Jeff, what'd you knock down? Okay. It's warmer. The big thing here is wind chill factor,
Yeah, yeah.
And so like, I think it crossed over to 70.
Oh yeah, I'm in shorts. It's beach. People are on the beach, so I'm in shorts today and short sleeve shirt.
Right.
But
Tim, do you feel better if we're like this?
I think we're okay with the computer screen.
yesterday was cold here. I mean, it never got into the 70s.
Yeah,
Well,
which is unusual in South Florida.
you're right, and I'm sure you're even colder up there in Georgia right now.
But today is beautiful. Today, right now, it's about 70 here. And it's actually a beautiful day here. We were sitting out on the front porch earlier. And yeah, the weekend here is supposed to be in the low 70s. So it's going to be pretty nice here.
Oh, that's a nice weekend.
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
when you lived here, did you ever go to Waxahachie?
No.
Do you know what it is?
No.
It's not a wine bar.
It might be the
It's-
best bird sanctuary in the country.
Oh, okay.
It is phenomenal.
And we went there yesterday, and here, coming from South Carolina, we saw 3 tremendous alligators.
Oh,
Wow. Wow.
They had
and the
some
birds.
big ones.
It's beautiful.
That's Florida for you. Definitely. Definitely. Because the other morning was so cold in South Florida, people on Facebook that still have friends in South Florida were showing the iguanas falling out of the trees.
Ah,
my God.
wow. Yeah, they die. They cannot handle cold weather. And that's the only
We
thing,
saw one yesterday.
right? That's the only thing that keeps the iguana population down here within check. Otherwise, they would run crazy.
Right.
But they get a cold snap and they die.
Yeah, I had one when we were living down there. I had one on the hood of my car one morning. It fell out of the tree right on the hood of my car.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So you know what I did? I got in the car and I gunned it and then I stopped real fast and it slid off and I just.
And you said a blessing.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, poor iguana, but you know what? Hey, they're not attractive little animals. I'm sorry.
No.
Well, they can be very colorful, though, depending on which model you get.
Oh yeah, yeah, they are, and they're sort of prehistoric looking. Really, when you look at it, they kind of look like little dinosaurs.
Yeah, well, that's what they go right back to, can you imagine what it must have been like around those ages when they were running around and even bigger, and they're pretty impressive. But
Yep.
so, of course, is the very large, when you see the very large alligators.
Yes.
This one with the
Yeah,
tail.
this one had to go up around 15 feet, so it was
Okay.
enormous.
Yeah, I've seen, the big ones down there in Florida, they get, and people don't realize, I think people assume incorrectly that they're kind of slow, but they can move fast.
Activity, right.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
They want
have very
to.
quick sprint speed.
Tim, you want a cold drink?
Sure, what do you got? Well, we made latkes last night for the first night of Hanukkah. So,
Oh, yes. Yeah, we had some too.
so I love latkes, and I don't indulge in them often, but for the holiday, it's like you gotta let yourself do it. So
What did you put on top?
we make what we call our gourmet latkes. We do it almost like lox and bagels, but with a latke instead of a bagel. So we have smoked salmon, sour cream, capers, red onion, little sliced egg, hard-boiled egg. They're very.
And that's in between.
No, we just put it on top. We just put it on top of one of the latkes and eat it that way, like open face.
I have to keep asking you guys ideas. I like that. That's
It was delicious. It was really delicious. And
Try
we were really decadent because we fried the latkes in schmaltz,
that.
which gave them a little bit of extra richness in the flavor. But
Yeah, it gives a very different flavor.
they were beautifully crispy on the outside and nice and pillowy on the inside. So I love
what I'm making. This is a studio, so the kitchen, the bedroom, everything is here.
Right.
And I just was introduced to. Have you ever gone to Aldi's?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, very good prices on certain.
Right.
And I love cranberries. I got cranberries. I'm making a cranberry sauce, but I'll send you the recipe. You'll flip. It's made with prunes.
Oh my gosh, really? That's different. That's different.
Oh, it's for seniors.
Well, it's okay. You got to do what you got to do.
If it doesn't sing, huh?
Right. All right, I guess we'll get started. It's just going to be us, I guess, today. So,
Oh my goodness.
So we are at Parashat Vayeshev this week. And this is one of those big narrative Torah portions where there's all kinds of things going on in the storyline here. So there's a lot of family intrigue. We've got some dysfunction in the family. We've got favoritism in the family. We've got more deception. We've got rape, and we've got imprisonment. All of that in one Torah portion.
All in the first chapter. Huh?
It's all here. And this is where we actually begin the story of Joseph. Of course, Jacob's favorite son. And the story of Joseph is actually considered to be one of the strongest narratives in the entire Torah. It's a narrative that's so strong, filled with intriguing plot developments, plot twists, other literary devices, and that, as you well know, it became the subject of a Broadway musical. That's how popular it is, which of course is Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And that was, of course, the show that sort of launched the fame and fortune of a relatively unknown composer, Andrew Lloyd Webber, and put him into the stratosphere because he would follow with many hit shows after that. So Joseph is portrayed in this portion as a dreamer, and he dreams of big things. He's clearly Jacob's favorite, there's no doubt about that. And Joseph's brothers begin to resent Joseph because of their father's favoritism. Their resentment festers, it grows to a point so deep that they hatch this plot to get rid of Joseph once and for all. They're not going to murder him, though they actually do consider that, but they decide against it. That's just a step too far for them that they can't bring themselves to take. So instead, they're going to place him, first of all, in this rather deep pit. They're not going to give him any food. They're not going to give him any water. And then ultimately, they are going to sell him into slavery to some passing Ishmaelites, as it says. Then they're going to make it look like something horrible happened to Joseph. They're going to take his colorful coat, which of course we know was given to him by his father. They're going to dip it into some goat's blood and then report back to Jacob, to their father, that Joseph was killed by a wild, raging beast. Joseph ultimately, after all of this, these shenanigans, does arrive in Egypt as a slave and in the home of a courtier to the pharaoh known as Potiphar. Potiphar buys him, makes him a servant in his household, and actually sort of recognizes that there is a goodness in Joseph, and he takes a liking to Joseph. So while Joseph is, I guess, a servant there, his life is not that bad. There's a problem, though, in the household, and that is Potiphar's wife has her eye on Joseph. She has been lusting after him. She has been propositioning him all along. He keeps telling her no, no, no. And then he rebuffs all of her advances because he realizes he can't go there. But she then tells her husband that, in fact, Joseph committed rape against her. And he believes his wife. So Potiphar ultimately has Joseph thrown in jail after believing his wife's tale of this rape. So there's a lot happening here. And we haven't even gotten to the Tamir story, which interrupts the whole flow of the narrative. Then we've got so much to think about here. There's a lot to reflect upon here. But I think one of the things that the Torah is focusing on in the story of Joseph is it's kind of telling us something about who we are as people, telling us something about human nature, whether we are parents or whether we are a child who happens to have siblings, brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. So we've already seen in the Torah that there is a danger in parental favoritism because of the story with Rebekah when she aided Joseph in his deception of his father Isaac. So when a parent has a sort of clear favorite and seemingly doesn't make a big secret about it, it doesn't really ever come to anything good. We see that reiterated here once again as Joseph's brothers are disgusted with Jacob's clear favoritism, Jacob's clear favoritism for Joseph. And that's something that maybe a lot of us can relate to if we grew up with brothers and sisters. We call it sibling rivalry. So for those of us who did grow up with siblings, we can kind of look at it from both sides here. Whether you were the perceived favorite or you were the one who resented the perceived favorite, you can fully understand the dynamic of what's at work here in this Torah portion. It's not easy to be on either side. It's not necessarily easy, or is it pleasant to be the favorite? And it's also not necessarily easy to be the one who is not the favorite, because in both cases, it can lead to some trouble. If you are the favorite, like Joseph is, things might seem to be going well for you, at least with your mom or your dad, but the stinging comments and the sideways looks from your brothers and sisters can take their toll. Basking in the perceived favoritism of parents becomes a burden, one that you might willingly give up because you'd rather have a good relationship with your siblings. If you're not the favored son or daughter, then you live with the doubts about, hey, why isn't it me? Why don't they like me best? Why am I not the favorite one? Why have mom and dad singled out my other sibling and not singled out me? This, of course, as it does in the Torah, it leads to resentment, and we could even say to a bit of hatred for the favored sibling, as well as a great deal of hurt and a certain amount of inner turmoil. So it's never easy to perceive your own self as being somehow not as good as the favored brother or the favored sister. This level of animosity, which we see in the Torah, if it's left unchecked, can lead to a really lifelong rift between siblings. If it can be talked about honestly and openly, then perhaps, you can get over it and it can be healed at some point in life. But if not, and it festers and grows, then it can persist for a lifetime. While sibling rivalry may not become as pointed in the Torah, where even murder is considered, and then slavery or selling into slavery occurs, it can still cause a great deal of stress and strife within a family. Jacob is crestfallen when he is informed of Joseph's supposed death at the hands of a wild beast. Jacob, who has clearly lived a life filled with a lot of regret already up to this point, must now add this burden to his already weary shoulders. The callousness of Joseph's brothers, who sit down while Joseph is in a pit with no water, with no food, and they sit down and they share a meal. They're sitting there eating together after they've thrown him in a pit and after they're about to sell him off to slavery. This kind of informs us of the dangers of a really strong bit of sibling rivalry and resentment. It can be difficult for us to even comprehend an act that would be so callous and cruel. So maybe our Torah is telling us that it's imperative that we deal openly with our resentments and our animosities, even when that conversation about those resentments can be challenging and very, very difficult. We must avoid allowing negative feelings to grow to a point where they cause us to become blind to the reality of our actions. Were Joseph's brothers so consumed by and filled with hate that they could not recognize their own cruelty as they sat and ate a meal while their brother was at the bottom of a pit without any food or water? What we have illustrated here in this Torah portion is a case of bad parenting on Jacob's part and intense sibling rivalry on Joseph's brother's part. And it's all gone completely awry. It's essential for parents to look at each child as unique and to respect and nurture each child for the individual that he or she is and the skills that he or she possesses. It's also important for siblings to appreciate one another and to keep the lines of communication open and among one another, even when that communication can be sometimes a bit distressing or painful. The family dynamics presented in the Torah illustrate that what occurred then within families is not so different from what occurs now, today. Just because a group of people is family does not mean that all things between them are always going to go smoothly, even though they are a family unit. Because frequently it does not. And I know I can attest to that from my own family. So we can learn from the difficulties presented in the Torah and strive to do better than the people we see in the Torah. So there you go, sibling rivalry. I don't know, I grew up with a great deal of it in my house. I mean, I have 3 brothers, 1 older, 2 younger, and yes, sibling rivalry was definitely in our household. I was not the favored one, I will tell you. It was my older brother who was the favored one.
What were the years difference between all?
My older brother is 3.5 years older than me. My brother then next to me on the other side, who's younger, is 4 years younger. Then I have a brother who is 13 years younger than I am.
The mistake.
Well, exactly. I can tell you exactly because my mom and dad told us. My youngest brother, who's quite a bit younger than I am, was the result of my father got a promotion at work.
They celebrate.
Yeah, he celebrated. It's an accident.
They did. No, and that my parents will be the first to tell you that's the truth. That's exactly what happened. And I can remember my mom sitting us all down and telling us that she was going to have another baby. And my oldest brother, the favored one, his response was, well, what'd you go and do that for? So when he was born, my youngest brother was born, I was already a teenager, and I actually spent a lot of time helping him when he was a baby because I was old enough to do so.
Boy, 4 sons.
Yes, no, I had no sisters. Nope.
You know, if Henry VIII was that lucky, England would still be Catholic.
I eventually got sisters-in-law, so there's that. But no, did not grow up. My mother was actually grateful, to be honest with you. She said later she was glad that she had all boys. That she thought raising boys was easier than raising girls.
Well,
that's funny, Jim.
Probably true in the teenage years.
Right.
We have 2 boys, and I don't know if you know, our sons are adopted.
Okay.
And I say that when you go for interviews looking into adoption, they always say, does it make a difference to you? And every book you read says, no, say we'd love them both. Now, I was a teacher, and I've always been prone to boys, okay? Right. So I wanted to say, and I knew Jeff would love a son, but I wouldn't dare. So we got our first child was a son. Then the second time we checked, and I guess it'd be nice to have a girl. I said, whatever you have, and we'll take. And when it came to boys, we both went, yay. So you never know.
A girl would have been fine.
Right. I mean, it's true. You will love them, whoever they are. But, let's face it, like sibling rivalry, we all have our, I was a teacher too. And you would always think that in class, you shouldn't have favorites in class. If you've got 24 kids sitting in front of you, you should treat them all equally. But any teacher will tell you it's hard not to have certain students that are your favorites. It's just,
right.
you try not to let it show and you try not to make it obvious. But, the kids that kind of are very cooperative and do what they're supposed to, and they're respectful and they're kind to their fellow students and all of that, of course, you're going to look at them a little differently than the ones who are belligerent.
Yeah, well,
That's for sure, type thing.
I mean, you want them all to learn, but there's no doubt about the fact that it's easier when you've got the cooperative kids versus the ones who fight you on everything.
Tim, was this one of the first time sibling rivalry came up in the
oh
Torah?
no, Canaan.
Oh no, because we just had it with Jacob. We had it with Esau and Jacob too. I mean,
It's throughout the Bible. I mean, the original stories with Cain and Abel, of course.
exactly. We go back to Cain and Abel. We have Jacob and Esau. I mean, I think family dynamics in the Torah, sibling rivalry being part of family dynamics, is something we see again and again and again. And what is interesting is that in the Torah, we don't see these people, and they don't have to be shown to us as perfect. We see them with their flaws. They're not perfect parents. They're not perfect children. And in a way, I think that makes them a little easier for us to identify with, because we're not perfect either. And if we had these perfect sort of people in the Torah, we'd be like, well, I can't really relate to that because, I have my own issues.
Well, haven't we even seen where God was not perfect? Certain things were done, and it was why?
Right.
Well, we didn't understand it. We don't know.
Well, but in Jewish tradition, unlike other religions, which when I teach the Judaism 101 for conversion candidates, and we talk about, the Jewish concept of God, and that it's okay to get angry at God, and it's okay to sometimes question God. If they're coming from a very stronger fundamentalist sort of Christian background, they find that just utterly amazing, because that wasn't true in the religion they came from. Oh, you don't question God, you don't get mad at God, God knows, God's this and whatever. And I'm like, well, Jewish tradition, and even if you look in the Torah, there are times Abraham tries to bargain with God when it comes to the whole Sodom and Gomorrah thing. Please don't destroy. If I can find 5 good people, will you back off? I mean, that's different than, what a lot of Christian religions and their concepts of God.
Okay, with this parasha, where does it go through the entire Joseph story, or is
Oh
it?
no, it's going to continue. We're going to continue. We only get as far as he's thrown in jail. And then remember, he is in jail with the baker,
right,
the chief baker of the Pharaoh, and the cupbearer of the Pharaoh. And he interprets their dream for them. And that's where this one ends. And then the Joseph story will continue and pick up next week. Also.
Okay, it's a serial, so we'll have to hang on.
Right, I know. Well, it is one of the strongest narratives. I mean, everything that I was looking at said, when you're talking about strong narratives in the Torah, the Joseph story is one of the strongest narratives, and you really get a clearer picture of this narrative than others where we have to kind of fill in the gaps and they're a little sketchier. But in this one, it's really done with enough detail that we really can have a strong sense of Joseph and what he does and who he is, and it's kind of unique in that sense in the Torah. I mean, it was a Broadway show. I mean, kind of interesting.
Yeah. Oh, that was.
I mean, how many, I did find out when I was doing a little research, so I kind of looked at a little bit of the Joseph and Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat thing.
Right.
Stephen Schwartz, who is also not obviously Andrew Lloyd Webber, actually did a Torah thing. It was not successful, where he tried to do a musical on the story of creation. I can't remember what he called it, but it's was trying to put this musical together, and he's Jewish, and I don't even think it ever made Broadway. It opened in England and was not successful, was critically panned, and then it did some small theaters in the US, but they did a recording of it, which now, if you can find, is worth a lot of money because it's been out of print for years and years and years.
Do you remember what was the name of it? Do you remember?
I'm trying to remember. I'll have to email you the name. I'll have to look it up again. But I had never heard of it. I mean, I knew that Stephen Schwartz had done other shows. Well, he did Godspell, for example. But I had never heard of this particular show. But I thought, well, that's interesting, because I was looking are there other Torah stories other than Joseph that have been adapted into some kind of musical, on the Broadway stage. And I came across that one, but obviously it didn't do well because nobody's heard of it. And like I said, you can't even find a recording of it anywhere. I guess anybody who has a recording of it, it's worth thousands of dollars.
Did Joseph know why he was thrown in jail? Did he know he was accused
Yes.
of rape?
Yes.
She made it pretty
And and of course, he's gonna who's he gonna believe? His servant, or is he gonna believe his wife?
Right.
And so he believes his wife. And so he throws Joseph in jail, and Joseph's like, okay, I kept rebuffing all of her advances. I kept trying to do the right thing, but ultimately she decided she was going to have the last word. And so he ends up in jail, which of course we need for the narrative because this is going to move the story on. Everything has a reason, it has a purpose,
So she's the heroine then, right?
well, she has her plot point to play, so he does end up in jail, does meet these servants of the Pharaoh who are in jail, and ultimately that's going to get him into the Pharaoh's court at some point. So.
Well, it's like Vashti. She had her part and then she was gone, right?
Right. Yeah, because I mean, this is one of those figures in the Torah who does what she does, and then that's it, gone. She's there as in this brief moment, kind of like a character in a movie who, has a brief cameo moment and then boom, is gone, and you never see the person again. And you probably don't even remember when the movie's over that it was there. It was just needed for the moment. So.
I hear you. Well,
yeah.
Very interesting. What was the coat like? Was it really Technicolor? Was it many different?
I know. I never got a chance to see it, but.
No, I don't even mean the movie, but when it's described in the Torah,
it's described as this multicolored sort of, probably more like a tunic, really, is what they think. In fact, when you look at sort of the footnotes in like the Plaut commentary, it suggests that it's like the male kind of tunic thing that he would have worn. But it does describe it as being something that made him stand out, and which is why it aroused the sort of jealousy and resentment of his brothers, because here was this beautiful, beautiful garment that he got. None of the rest of them got it. Joseph did not give a gift to all of his sons, only to Joseph. And so this beautiful garment caused this, resentment that they already had to grow even stronger.
Well, again, I'm just thinking, not everyone might have wanted to wear that coat. What you're saying.
But apparently the brothers must have liked it because they decide to hatch this plot. I mean, like I said, at first they do consider murdering him, but then they, the one brother, I believe is Reuben, says, well, we probably shouldn't go so far as murder, but there's something we can do to get him out of the picture. And so they sell him off, and off he goes to Egypt.
What happened to the coat?
Well, it's taken back to Jacob.
The coat is brought back.
Oh, that's right. They put the blood.
They take it back with blood on it so they can prove to Jacob that he was murdered by some sort of, wild beast. And so Jacob has the coat, and he weeps and cries over the loss of his favorite son, thinking, that Joseph is no longer with us. Of course, we know that there's going to be a reunion later in the Torah coming up. We don't know that at this point. If it was the first time we were reading the Torah for the first time, we wouldn't know that there is going to be a reunion coming up before too much longer. But since we know that's going to be happening shortly.
Tim, did you say you haven't seen Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor?
Oh no, I saw it.
Oh yes, okay.
Years ago, I saw it.
Yeah. Years ago, right?
I saw it. I never saw. I mean, I guess they made a movie of it. I never saw the movie. I only saw it on
I don't think I saw the movie. I saw the play twice.
Right.
But, yeah.
But in what I was reading about it, it said there was a movie version made, but I don't have any recollection of ever seeing it. I don't think it plays anywhere on any of the streaming channels that I've ever seen, and I tried to see if I could hunt it down somewhere, and I came to a dead end. It doesn't seem to be even available that I could see, like if you wanted to buy it on a disc or something. So it must have been apparently not particularly successful, because all I can think.
Are you seeing any good series on TV you'd recommend?
Oh, let's see. What have we been watching lately? We've been watching a few movies. Well, we watched Ratched on Netflix, about the nurse that came out of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, really? They have a thing on her?
It was an 8-part series with Sarah Paulson playing Nurse Ratched. It's
Oh my goodness.
it's pretty bizarre. I like it for the cinematography. The cinematography and colors that he uses are so interesting. I mean, it's kind of bloody. I mean, they show lobotomies and things like that going on and whatever. But she's an interesting character. I think it'll probably come back for some more episodes next year because they left it wide open at the end. Sarah Paulson is amazing as Nurse Ratched. She plays the part really, really well. I liked it, but part of the appeal of it is the color that they use in it. It's just, I can't even describe it. It's just got this unique palette to it that really is striking.
Have you been watching The Crown?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's I find that one pretty spectacular.
I love The Crown. I love the performances in The Crown. I mean, I know that they take some license historically with it, but I still think it's a really brilliant series. It's engaging. It pulls you in. You know, I think the cast is terrific. Absolutely.
Right. I think
look
so
the
too.
part. They
Right.
look the part, some of them.
I mean, and they act the part so well that you
Yes.
believe they are who they are, and they pull you into the story. I mean,
Yeah, hey, Charles.
You know, you can understand why Charles might never be king. I think Elizabeth might hang on to 104.
she might. Well, you know, her mother, how did the Queen Mother live to quite a ripe old age? And when they asked the Queen Mother, like, what was the secret of her longevity, you know what she told them? Gin and tonic. Seriously, that's what she said. She goes, I have my daily gin and tonic, and that's what helped me get to this old age. I'm like, well, hey, good for you. Good for you. No, it's a great series. I mean, we have finished the current season, and I always
No,
hate.
we're not yet. We're on, I think tonight is number 9 for us, or 10, I don't remember. We're right near the end.
Did you see Restaurant?
No,
Yeah, that
I
one
think you'll
that one
find
is
it.
difficult to get now. Not difficult, but you got to pay for it now. It's
Yeah.
only on
It's about after the war in Denmark, isn't it?
yeah, it takes place in a restaurant. They kind of play it up as the next Downton Abbey in many respects. But it revolves about the people in the restaurant, and their lives.
Have you watched The Queen's Gambit, the one that everybody's
It
talking
was
about?
wonderful. I thought it was great.
See,
You haven't seen it yet?
No, we're going to start that one. Yeah, we're going to
Please
start.
do. You'll, even if you weren't a chess player.
No, I'm not. I really am not.
Well, I played chess many, many years ago, but I know the basic openings and a few things. And when you see it in the, and I'm watching a spot where she's first learning how to play the game, and I'm saying, "Oh my God, he's trying the scholar's mate on her," and that's what it was. So it brought back memories from about 40 years ago or
But
longer.
everybody's loving it. I mean, it's gotten such great write-ups, and everybody I know that has watched it has just said it's really, really well done. It's really good.
Yeah, who was Sophia Loren on Netflix?
I don't remember her. No,
that movie in Italian where she takes in the
where she takes in the
Holocaust survivor. Yeah,
right.
Did you like that?
We have not watched that yet.
It's good. I don't remember where I don't know if it was on PBS or what it was on, but it was excellent. So it might be Netflix, but Sophia Loren is 86 there.
Yeah.
Her son did the movie.
Yeah.
Eduardo Ponti, and there's talk of her going for an Oscar for it.
Yeah, the New York Times film critic said this is Oscar worthy.
Wow.
So
it's been a long time since she's done anything. So
yeah, over 20 years.
Yeah.
And look, a son can prod a mother, oh, go to work. I need to make this movie, type thing. So.
No, but I had read somewhere that this was something she really had her heart set on doing, that she was just so intrigued by the story that this was something she wanted to do.
Very interesting.
Well, someone told me, and it's a friend who really knows movies, that Madame Rosa, it was called, not what it's called now. The original was with Simone Signoret.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes.
That would be interesting because I mean, it's like, she's legendary, in Hollywood, and it's
wait, you see her. She still has her figure. I went, whoa, I should look like that 86.
At
But
80,
then when she turns around, you don't know how much is makeup and did she age. She's a beautiful woman, but when you see her, she's aged, you know.
Yeah.
No kidding.
they all do. I mean, they're all those glamorous actresses of the 30s and 40s, and eventually, things change. I mean, look at Betty Davis, for God's sake.
Yeah, but Tim, one thing, because of the film and because they're now able to take the old film and redigitize it, where, the film isn't wearing out anymore.
Right.
They'll be young forever.
Right.
I mean, these films will be popular 20, 30 years from now.
Yeah. Well, and I'm a lover of old movies. I love the movies of the 40s. And, my father, I used to watch them with my dad. That's how I got into them, because my dad would say, oh, this is a good movie, you should watch it. So we would sit down together. So I learned a lot of the classics of the 40s and 50s that I probably would have never paid attention to.
Ask him what he recommends, Jeff.
Do you have a favorite all-time movie?
Probably my favorite movie of the 40s is Now Voyager with Betty Davis.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
I almost know every line of dialogue by heart. I could recite almost the entire film along with the cast.
Well, she was quite the actress, of course.
Yeah, my father was a huge fan of her, so whenever there was an old Betty Davis movie on, we watched it. But then I also learned Barbara Stanwyck and Ingrid Bergman and Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn and all the other Jimmy
I'm
Stewart.
a big Katharine Hepburn fan.
I love Katharine Hepburn, yeah. And Jimmy Stewart. I don't know, I always like Jimmy Stewart's movies.
Jimmy Stewart, what did we just see him last
saw him
night?
in the
shop around the corner.
Oh, that I saw that years ago. Yeah.
And it's just on, I know what it is. I think Netflix is just having it, and they brought it on The Shop Around the Corner, and it's almost like it was made yesterday, because the filming looked so good on it. And
Yeah.
Jimmy Stewart looked so, young, obviously.
Yeah. I always just there was an appeal about his acting that I always just kind of liked. I don't know. He always just struck me as someone you could sit down with and, have a glass of wine or a beer and just sit and talk like just a normal human being.
And it's kind of amazing, because he was, he didn't just portray it. He was actually a genuine hero. I mean, this guy was, well, eventually he became a brigadier general in the Air Force, but, he was an active colonel, and, he flew the big airplanes and,
Right. No, I'm grateful to my dad that he introduced me to all those classics. I mean, my parents were, and people are amazed, because I know a lot of the music of the 40s and 50s, but my parents played it when we were growing up. So I learned, I love big band music. I like Glenn Miller and the Dorseys. I love that music. And probably one of my favorite singers in the entire world is Rosemary Clooney.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Caleb and I were lucky enough to see Rosemary Clooney in concert with the Toledo Symphony shortly before she passed away.
Wow. When did she pass? In the 90s?
I want to say it was probably early 2000s, I think it was.
Really?
Because
Okay.
I think this concert was like in 98 or 99. And she sounded great, and she was very gracious. And it was like one of the highlights to actually have gotten to see her on stage singing live.
Wow,
It's like a dream come true for me.
well, when she saw you guys were there, she said, I could die now. This was one of my, it was on my bucket list.
I grew up listening to her because my parents loved her. So I knew all of her music because they played it all. My mother played music in the house all the time. She was not a soap opera person or anything like that. When she was at home, she had records back then.
I hear you. Well, ask Jeff. I've seen more TV now since all this happening, but it's all series and programs, movies that I've seen my whole life. I'm not a TV watcher.
Yeah, see, we aren't either. We'll watch a good series, we'll watch a good movie, but there are certain days our TV doesn't even get turned on some days.
Yes,
We just
there's
don't,
nothing
you know.
really,
I'm a big
saw
reader.
you saw who made Time of the Year, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Time of the
Yes, I
Year?
did.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Except I was kind of hoping it was going to be Fauci, I have to say.
Oh, I
Well,
forgot.
that would, he was one of them.
And the healthcare workers in general. I mean, they've been.
I know the healthcare workers and the Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, there were a lot of things, but I think in history, Biden may go down as the man who saved democracy.
I certainly hope you are correct, because
So
we're moving far away with these stupid lawsuits and all this garbage. And then 105 House of Representatives signing on, supporting this ridiculous Texas thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is wrong?
yeah, well, I don't think that's really, I think the court will dismiss it with prejudice. So
Oh, I do too. But it's wasting. I mean, just accept the fact that you lost, concede the election. Let's move on. This is what we've done for hundreds of years. You know,
this unfortunately, this is not Donald.
no,
And it's a shame. I mean,
it very much is.
well,
My parents, if my parents were alive, they would just be, you know, because they would see everything that they believed in falling apart. And I'm kind of glad they're not seeing it, because this would have just absolutely been beyond anything they could imagine.
It's beyond what any of us.
but you know, we still got another rough winter coming up. I mean,
Yes,
as
we
far
do.
as health, we got to
Oh,
get
yes,
through
we
this
do.
whole thing.
Yes, we do.
And the unemployment situation I'm reading is really horrendous.
It's very bad. It's very bad. The number of people filing last week was, again, you know, beyond what they ever imagined. And like you said, I think we've got several months to go before we're going to see anything
Right.
change.
I think spring is going to be a very welcome time.
I hope so. I hope so. We need it.
Anyway, thank you very much,
Thank
Tim.
you.
All right. Well, enjoy your time. How long are you in Florida?
Well,
2
we don't
more
know. I
weeks, 2
mean,
more
if
weeks now.
you know, if we had stopped at our brothers before coming here, we'd be packing now and heading back home.
Sure.
Because you know, we would isolate at home.
Right.
But we never came
Let's
in
say
contact.
2 weeks. We're probably leaving Christmas.
If
It's
all
easier
goes
to
well,
drive
we'll
then.
drive back on probably Christmas Day.
Okay. Well, enjoy your time there. Enjoy the beach. Enjoy the weather. You know.
Thank you.
We'll keep visiting you, and regards at home.
Right. And you know, stick your toes in the water for us. You know.
Yes. Yeah, we'll try to remember your class on Monday. Have Jennifer send out those
Monday?
on Friday.
Okay.
But have Jennifer send out the notices.
Oh, trust me, I tell her every week, but you know.
Right.
And isn't there something for Hanukkah tonight?
Well, they're doing the Zoom, where they want everybody to light menorahs on Zoom. So all the little squares will have people lighting their menorahs, you know, at the same time.
Oh, it'll be very nice.
Wait till you
It'll be
see
kind of cute, I think. You know,
ours is
they're
so
trying to
small.
get, yeah, like if we get so many, everybody's going to be just a little square on Zoom, but that's okay. That's fine.
Yeah,
It'll be
that's
cute.
a nice start.
Yeah.
Well, in regards at home.
Yes.
Take
All
care,
right.
Tim.
Happy Hanukkah.
Thank
You